According to the computer, all set.
Okay, and live stream is good. Cloud recording is up. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing of the Subcommittee on Landmarks, Public Sitings, and Dispositions. At this time, would all panelists please turn on your videos. To minimize disruption, please place electronic devices to vibrate or silent. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so at landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that's landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair Riley, we are ready to begin.
Good morning. I am Councilmember Kevin Riley, Chair of the Subcommittee on Landmarks, Public Sitings, and Dispositions. I am joined today by my colleagues, Councilmember Koo, This will be the last meeting of this subcommittee this session, so we will be voting on all items that we hear today, in addition to one item laid over from our last meeting. I ask my colleagues to maintain a quorum through the end of this meeting. Today's hearing will include site selections from 3 new schools and the siting of an additional space for an existing school and the Stapleton Beacon Article 11 disposition. We will vote on the Bed-Stuy Weeksville Mosaic project heard at our last meeting. We will also vote to approve a motion to file an application submitted and subsequently withdrawn by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services for an office lease for the New York City Law Department. I now recognize counsel to explain today's hearing procedures.
Thank you, Chair Riley. I am Jeffrey Campagna, counsel to this subcommittee. Members of the public who wish to testify were asked to register for today's hearing. If you registered to testify and are not yet signed into Zoom, please sign in now and remain signed in until after you have testified. If you wish to testify and have not registered, please go to www.council.nyc.gov/landuse to sign up now. If you're not planning to testify on today's items, please watch the hearing on the New York City Council website. All people testifying before the subcommittee will be on mute until they are recognized to testify. Please confirm that your mic is muted before you begin speaking. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. If you have written testimony you would like to submit the subcommittee to consider in addition to or in lieu of appearing before the subcommittee, or if you require an accessible version of a presentation given at today's meeting, please email landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number or project name in the subject line of the email. During the hearing, council members who would like to ask questions should use the Zoom raise hand function. The raise hand button should appear at the bottom of the participant panel. I will announce council members who have questions in the order that they raise their hands. Witnesses are reminded to remain in the meeting until they are excused by the chair. Lastly, there may be extended pauses if we encounter technical problems. We ask that you please be patient as we work through the issues. Chair Riley will now continue with today's agenda.
We will begin with today's meeting with 4 hearings for applications submitted by the School Construction Authority pursuant to Section 1732 of the New York School Construction Authority Act for proposed site selection for school facilities. We will hear pre-considered application number 2020-5373 SCR, a proposed site selection for a new supportive space for PS R721. An existing school facility known as the Hungerford School, located at 129 Tompkins Avenue in the borough of Staten Island in Council District represented by Councilmember Rose. We will hear pre-considered application number 2021-5033 SCQ, a proposed site selection for a new 572-seat primary school facility located at the corner of Waters Edge Drive and 24th Avenue in the borough of Queens in the council district represented by Councilmember Vallone. We will also hear pre-considered application number 2021-5032 SCQ, a site selection for a new 801-seat high school facility located at 165-18 Hillside Avenue in the borough of Queens in the council district represented by Councilmember Miller. The fourth SCA item we will hear pre-considered is application number 2022-5011 SCR, a proposed site selection for a new 572 primary school facility located at 24 Shelley Avenue in the borough of Staten Island in the council district represented by newly elected council member Carr. Presented on behalf of the School Construction Authority, we have Andrea Bender and Gail Mandaro. Council, please administer the affirmation.
Please raise your right hands and state your names one at a time.
Gail Mandaro.
Andrea Bender.
You affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions.
I do.
I do.
Council, before we begin, I'm so sorry. We have been joined by Council Member Traeger, Council Member Barron, newly elected Council Member David Carr, and Council Member Vallone. I just want to see if they wanted to give any remarks before we allow the panel to begin. Is that all right?
Yes, council members, if you would use the raise hand button to indicate whether you have remarks. Council Member Vallone has remarks and Council Member Carr has remarks.
Thank you. Council Member Vallone, you may begin.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much, everyone. I see Andrea Bender and Gail. Thank you for showing up today. And I know you have a lot on the agenda. I just wanted to know for you that when this was proposed, obviously there's always concern and questions that come up for a new location site, and those were adhered to and listened to. And I have to thank Andrea's team for working with my community leaders, working with the community board, working with my office to listen to those. And she's worked out with us a stipulation with terms and my Bay Terrace school statement I've submitted for the record, and I won't read that for just to make sure you have enough time for everything today. But I wanted to personally come and tell everyone thank you, and to say that we're bringing it's sad in some respects, some are down to the last 3 weeks of my term, our very first new school to the Councilmatic District of 19 in Northeast Queens since schools were built, as an understatement. We have the districts 25 and 26 were some of the highest. 25 is the highest, and 26 is right up there with overpopulated schools. So to reject the possibility of a new school is not something that was contemplated, but to make it a correct fit for the community is what I believe this proposal is. I wanted my fellow council members to know that we support the school. We're excited to bring this to the community. In fact, part of this, there's also a brand new park that's going across the street to alleviate some of the congestion and to give the children a place to play and give the parents a place to safely pick up their children. There's DOT traffic studies, environmental studies, there's NCOs prepared to step up from the police precincts. So to me, this is a well thought package, and I wanted the committee to know that. And Chair Riley, thank you for the minute to give me time to share some of my Christmas carols going on in the background and tell everyone a happy, wonderful, blessed holiday to all of you. And again, we support the school. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Vallone. We also have been joined by Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Miller, would you like to give remarks regarding your school? Councilmember Miller?
Yep. Can you hear me, Mr.
Yes.
Chair?
Yes, we
Good
can.
morning, sir. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, I am here, and I would like to just wholeheartedly endorse the new high school that would be built in School District 29, Council District 27. We are long overdue. We are at a capacity crisis for our high school. While certainly we have some concern about the location, but the conversations that we've had with local, with my colleagues, with community boards, CECs as well, understand the necessity to have state-of-the-art first-class building for our high school scholars, as well as SCA's commitment to supporting the removal of temporary classrooms and two other facilities help to move this project along. So as I leave the council, certainly one of our priorities was to ensure that we provided the best educational experience for our young scholars. Having brick and mortars is a big part of that, and this project is a big part of that. So we are definitely in support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Miller. Councilmember, newly elected Councilmember Carr, would you like to give some remarks?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair Riley. It's exciting to be here. This is my first time formally participating in a council proceeding since I took office last Tuesday. So I'm just very privileged to be among you all today. So thank you, Chair Riley, for this opportunity to speak before we get into the substance. I want to thank the folks from SCA for making time for me last week to kind of catch up on the status of the application. I'm not going to read my formal remarks. I'm just going to kind of repeat what you already know I have concerns about, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to work through together. The truth is that this school is going to meet a really important need. The Little Red School, PS 26 on Victory Boulevard. It's an old building, and it's a packed to the gills building. The West Shore absolutely needs this school. I'm an enthusiastic supporter of it. I really have to tip my hat off to Borough President Otto and to my predecessor, Steve Matteo, for sort of highlighting the need for these school seats, but also for preserving this particular piece of property from residential development. Because the truth is, we already have an overcrowded school and overcrowded schools in the area. We already have an overtaxed infrastructure. We didn't need residential development in this area. And that's what would have happened if they had not worked with SCA to step in and turn this into a future educational campus. And I'm so excited to be working with you guys on that. As you know, there's three concerns I have, and all of them are really related to traffic. We really need to make sure that we get right the ingress and egress for drop off and pickups during the school day, making sure we get buses and cars off of Victory Boulevard onto the campus site, get the kids off safely, and that traffic can continue on its way throughout the rest of its day. We talked about the recent denial of a left turn signal for Victory and Wild. I think we need to work with DOT to make sure that and other signalizations that we can kind of contemplate to put in place are part of the discussion moving forward. And also, just finally, we need to make sure that we get the off-site parking right. I know that we don't want to dedicate space on site for parking because we want to optimize the educational and recreational opportunities for our kids. But we have to make sure that we get that plan in place, as well as, be able to handle reasonable requests for accommodation from the neighbors who are going to be enduring the construction over the few months to a year or so once this gets started. So looking forward to working with you all. Very excited to support this project, and I urge my colleagues to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Carr. This is a wonderful project to come into the council and be a part of. Now, I would definitely like to give the applicant panel time to present. This is a big school day, so I just wanted to make sure my colleagues had a chance to, get some remarks regarding the schools, the new, schools that are coming within their districts. But you can begin.
Good morning, Chairperson Riley and council members, and thank you for your kind words of support of our 4 applications today. My name is Gail Mandaro, and I'm the Senior Director and Senior Attorney for Real Estate Services for the New York City School Construction Authority. Also with me today is Andrea Bender, our Vice President and Chief of Staff of External Affairs. And we're here to proudly to present to you our application for an expansion of the current Hungerford campus on Tompkins Avenue. The New York City School Construction Authority has undertaken the site selection process for 129 Tompkins Avenue, Block 534, Lot 84 in the borough of Staten Island for use as supportive space for the existing school facility located at Block 534, Lot 75, currently known as PSR 721. The proposed site currently consists of an approximately 10,500 square foot or roughly a quarter acre privately owned unimproved vacant lot located in the mid-block on the eastern side of Tompkins Avenue, directly to the east of the existing PSR 721. Under the proposed project, the SCA plans to acquire the privately owned property for use as supportive space for the existing PSR 721. The site is located within the Staten Island Community District Number 1 and Community School District 31 in the Clifton neighborhood of Staten Island. The notice of filing of the site plan was published in the Staten Island Advance and the New York Post 5-borough edition, as well as the City Record on February 21st, 2021, at which time the Community Education Council 21 and the Staten Island Community Board Number 1 and the City Planning Commission were notified of the proposed site plan. Staten Island Community Board 1 held a public hearing originally scheduled for March 19th, 2020. Scheduled a hearing for March 19th, 2020, but the hearing was canceled without new date being scheduled. Community Education Council 31 held a public hearing on April 6th, 2020, and no public comments were received on this application. The SCA affirms the site plan pursuant to section 1731.4 of the New York Public Authorities Law. And in accordance with section 1732 of the New York Public Authorities Law, the SCA submitted the proposed site plan to the mayor and city council by letter dated December 3rd, 2021. We look forward to your subcommittee's favorable consideration of the proposed site plan, and we are prepared to answer any questions that the committee may have for us.
Thank you, Gail. I only have one question. Will these schools be, will a gymnasium be included in all of the schools that are presented today?
So with respect to the other 3 applications that have not yet been presented, we will absolutely be including some sort of gym or gymatorium in each of the new buildings. With respect to the application that I just testified regarding, we're not completely sure what kind of program is going to go in there. What we are currently asking approval for is to acquire a strip of land that is adjacent to an existing school. That program will be moving out to a brand new state-of-the-art building on the Petrides campus. And once that program is moved out, then we will enter into the planning for what is going to go on to the existing campus. I would imagine it will also include a gym, but we're so early in the process, I can't express what will be included.
Okay, thank you. Council, are there any members that have any questions?
If there are any council members who have questions, please use the raise hand button now. I see no council member questions.
Thank you for your testimony. There being no more council member questions, this panel is excused. Thank you. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Andrea. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on any of the 4 school siting applications?
There are no members of the public signed up to testify on these items.
Seeing no other members of the public who wish to testify on application number 2020-5373 SCR, 2021-5033 SCQ, 2021-5032 SCQ, or 2022-5011 SCR, the public hearing on these items are now closed. Our last public hearing today will be on LU 931, the Stapleton Beacon Article 11 disposition, submitted by HPD pursuant to Section 576-A2 of the Private Housing Finance Law. The application requests approval of the disposition of the property located at Block 487, Lot 100 in Staten Island to facilitate the construction of one of the buildings with approximately 359 rental units and approximately 9,000 square feet of the community facility space. The project is located in the district represented by Councilmember Rose. Presenting for the applicants, we have Kevin Paris for HPD and Kirk Goodrich for Monadnock Development, and Matthew Jenzak from Sisters of Charity Housing Development Corporation. Excuse me if I pronounced those wrong. I now ask that the witnesses will be unmuted and the council administer the affirmation.
Please raise your right hands and state your names one at a time.
Good morning, Kevin Paris, HPD.
Kirk Goodrich, Monadnock.
Matthew Janesco, Sisters of Charity Housing Development Corporation.
Thank you. You may begin your presentation.
No, I didn't swear them in yet.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Council.
You affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions.
I do. Yes.
I do.
Thank you. Now you may begin your presentation.
Thank you. I believe we have a presentation, if that could be pulled up on the screen. And just on behalf of HPD, I would like to thank the council for hearing this item today. I do, in the interest of time, would like to turn it over to our applicant team to walk us through this presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Chair Riley, good to see you again, and all the members of the Land Use and Zoning Committee. My name is Kirk Goodrich. As I said before, I'm president of Monadnock Development. I'm here to present this project on behalf of our team. What you see on the screen now is an image of the proposed building. Next slide. So, we're really excited about the project. We think it's a thoughtful design, that it's not only affordable housing, which we do quite a bit of, but it combines a lot of the community uses and that are key things that were identified in the community visioning report. We're a team of developers that are really experienced, and we've engaged consultants that have expertise in dealing with large affordable housing projects and site conditions such as we find here in Staten Island. Our approach to affordable housing development revolves around community engagement, which has always been important to us. And then the project is going to be 100% affordable and fits within the structure of HPD's term sheets and is financially feasible. Next slide. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction, project overview, design strategy, development program, affordability, and then open it up for any questions from the committee. Next slide. The team consists of Sisters of Charity Housing Development Corporation, Monadnock Development, and Master Realtors. Both Sisters of Charity Housing Development Corporation and Master Realtors, who's led by Bob Kelly, are based on Staten Island. We've worked with this team before, so it's a team that's familiar with one another and have worked well together. The consultant team listed below have worked together before, and so we're really excited about collaborating again. Next slide. So in a nutshell, the site is 100% affordable. Moderate income and below. The site includes 15% of the units formerly homeless, has housing opportunities for seniors as well. We have a great deal of community facility. There's going to be access to healthy foods and community health programs. These are all things that were flagged within the visioning report. And I think this slide is meant to demonstrate that we're responding to all the items in the visioning report. Next slide. So the site is about 360,000 gross square feet. The building will be around 11 stories. We're going to have, as Chair Rowley indicated, overall about 360 units, 1 supers unit and 359 rental. We're going to have a wide array of amenity spaces. There's 30,000 gross square feet of open space. If you look at this slide, you see the open space on the roof and in the front yard and side yard. 8,600 gross square feet of community space and 90 off-street parking spaces. Next slide. So in terms of design strategy, what we really were faced with here is a site that fronted the water, but also we had to make sure as a result of that we had the appropriate resiliency measures taken, which we're familiar with, having built on the waterfront in Brooklyn and in the waterfront in Queens. And so we put together a team and a plan for the site that was really responsive to the site conditions in a way we feel really excited about. But not only responsive, we think the design is compelling and it really enhances the overall waterfront experience for residents and people in the community. Next slide. This is a shot of the front of the building. And as you can see, two things I would highlight here is the attention to detail on landscaping, which, you know, plays off of the public park that's right across the street along the waterfront. So the type of landscaping and the overall sculpting of it really responds to what we see in the area. And then you see a glassed area on the facade of the building. We've described those as sort of beacons. And so there are about 4 or 5 of those spaces throughout the building that are community amenities, access spaces for residents to enjoy, that actually have views in the surrounding area along the shore. Is one of the, I think, compelling features of the building. Next slide. I mentioned resiliency. Obviously, you know, this is an important theme after Superstorm Sandy in particular, that buildings in locations like this be very responsive. And so in addition to, you know, the actual physical barriers we've identified here, which are off to the right in the image that shows the deployable barriers, the height of the ground floor, for example, is, I think, a total of 17 feet above sea level. And we took really great pains to make sure, in terms of organizing the building and the spaces, that we checked all the boxes in terms of resiliency. Next slide. I'm going to pass it over to Matt Chinesco from Sisters of Charity to kind of walk through the balance of the presentation, and then we'll take questions.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Kirk, and thank you, Chair Riley and council members. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here today. As Kirk said, I wanted to just walk you through the interior of the building very briefly. As you can see, it is twisted almost like a snake, which allows us to provide the most housing that we can. But what's important to know about this design is that all the hallways are connected. So you can walk from one end of the building to another, but we have two elevator banks in the building. So there's not going to be, if you're on this one end of the building, you wouldn't need to walk all the way to the other end to get an elevator to your floor or downstairs so you could leave. We were very well focused on making sure that there are plenty of amenities within the building. Social seating, a fitness room, and healthy play spaces. We were also focused on sustainability, you know, between solar panels and green roofs, educational placards and bike storage, and sunlit laundry facilities. So we wanted to make sure, as I mentioned to Chair Riley last time we spoke, we wanted to make sure that this building worked for the residents, that it just wasn't a place where they lived, but it was a place where that they could call home, and to kind of create all those creature comforts and conveniences that people have the right to expect where they live. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also focused on making sure the outside of the building was welcoming. As you can see, if you corresponding with the letters, there's a walking loop on the outside of the building. There's also a space on the roof for a community garden. And down, you also have a one-way traffic loop as well, which we thought was important given that there are going to be families living here, so children know exactly where the cars and where the vehicle traffic is coming from. It has limited curb cuts, and street lights, oversized windows, 4 facades, all those things that you want in a building to make it safe, but also in a building to make it welcoming. Next slide. We also focused on making sure we had uses of the community space that would benefit residents. So just in brief, we have a commitment from the YMCA of Staten Island to use space on the ground floor for counseling services. CASC, the Community Agency for Senior Citizens, has agreed to provide transportation for seniors, as they do many other places on Staten Island. And Meals on Wheels is going to be using some of this space on the ground floor as a distribution site. And we also have commitments from Rumsey and Arch Care to use space to provide services to our residents. And finally, there's a component on Grow NYC, of which I'm sure many of you are familiar, has also agreed to participate in working with the community there. Again, we thought, given the reality of sometimes public transportation being difficult on Staten Island, we wanted to bring a critical mass of services into the building so that people didn't need to be worried about where they were going or how they were getting there, but rather worried about how they could make sure their needs are met. Next slide. And finally, with the affordability, as Kirk mentioned, we have a wide variety of income levels, ranging from the formerly homeless, approximately 54 units, all the way up through 90% of the area media income. And our goal in that was to make sure that we represented the diversity of Staten Island, that there are so many different people on the island, so many different income levels, so many different backgrounds. We wanted to truly create a community that was a microcosm of the island as a whole. Also, you'll notice with the unit counts, there's a wide variety of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. All of this is through the HPD ELA program. And I should mention it's expected now, so we shouldn't, in a sense, take credit, but I need to mention that there will be free resident Wi-Fi. That seems to be a basic expectation now of any type of space, and we're certainly going to fulfill that. Next slide. So just to recap, we wanted to create a building that was thoughtfully designed, that provided quality, affordable housing. There is a myth sometimes that just because it's affordable, it doesn't need to be quality. And if it's quality, then it can't be affordable. And in this project, we're seeking to, since, take apart that stereotype piece by piece. And so by working with a local team, but also a team that has citywide connections, we're looking to bring a project that is fiscally feasible and 100% affordable to the northern shore of Staten Island. Next slide. And I think that brings us to the end of our presentation. So if there are questions or comments, however the committee chair wishes to entertain them and direct them, I yield back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Kirk, and thank you, Kevin. Like I stated to you all before, I think this project is beautiful. I think it's going to have everything in one central location where people in the community can fellowship and network amongst each other. My only question is, can you just explain the unit differences? Because from 1 to 2 bedrooms, it was about 150, 130, but when you went to the 3 bedrooms, it was 18. And Kevin, can you explain HPD ELA program just for the record, if possible? Thank you.
Chair Riley, could we put that slide back up if possible, so the other members of the committee could see what you're talking about? I think that might be helpful.
Thank you.
I think it was a slide.
2 of the slides.
Yeah. Yes,
Right.
that's the slide. So Chair Kevin, before you, Kevin from HPD, before you speak. So what Chair Riley was referring to was the fact that typically on these is you see there's 103 two bedrooms and 18 threes. So in this mix right now is between 65 and 70% of the units are ones and twos, and then the balance, roughly 34%, are larger units, twos and threes. Chair Riley, I could start, and then everybody could jump in if that's okay with you.
Yes, go ahead.
So there are 2 points I would make. One is that I explained over time what we observed when we get responses across the city from people applying, that that's usually 60 to 70% of the people applying are 1 and 2 person households. And over time, as a result of that, that's changed what the requirements are in the HPD program, specifically the ELA program and the family program. So in the many years ago, I would say more than 5 years ago, we would normally see 50% of the units be 2 or 3 bedrooms, and then the balance would be studios and ones, and that's changed over time in response to this. The other thing I would point out, my colleagues on Staten Island, specifically Bob Kelly, who's a developer out there, pointed out to me yesterday that what he's observed and some of the stakeholders he's spoken to is that there is a real shortage of units for young people who are from Staten Island to be able to remain on Staten Island. Often the units in Staten Island are senior units. And so the other comment I would have on this, aside from the ELA term sheet, is the desire to create a place for people who might have grown up on Staten Island who are young professionals to be as well. So those are the 2 overall comments, Chair Riley, and I'll stop there.
Thank you, Kirk. Kevin?
Hi, Chair Riley. So your question was related to just on the record understanding of the ELA term sheet?
Yes,
So,
please. Thank you.
Yeah, so ELA stands for our Extremely Low and Low Income Affordability Program at HPD. It's a program for low income multifamily rental projects. Within that program, up to 80% of the units within the project would have to be for households earning up to 80% of AMI. And then up to 20% of the units within the project would be for more moderate incomes, between up to 90 to 100% of AMI.
Thank you, Kevin.
No
That is all. And I believe Councilmember Barron has a question. Councilmember Barron?
Okay, thank you so much. Oh boy. I'm in another hearing as well, so I'm trying to put that sound down.
Working hard.
Thank you. It's good to hear about this project. It sounds like really one that's going to be beneficial. And I have the answer to the income levels that I wanted to talk about. So 80% of the units will be at 80% and below, and 20% from 90 to 100. I was interested in knowing what was the unit distribution across those income levels.
So first of all, it's always good to see you, Councilmember Barron.
Thank you.
And the second thing in answer to your question is, normally on the HPD programs, we have to make the unit mixes the same across each income level. So in other words, you can't have a situation where all the 2-bedroom apartments are for upper income or lower income. So it's the same proportion. So if 67% of the units in the building are studios and ones, then in each income category, the same percentage of studios and ones will be in each category, because they want to make sure that at each income level, that folks who are at that income level have the same opportunity to be in a studio 1 or 3. So usually the program requires us to make sure that the same unit mix, the mix in the building is the same that's available at each income level.
Thank you. And then my next question pertains to the construction materials that we're going to be using. Because many people may know that there was an issue with one of the RAD pack conversions where the materials of the sheetrock that we used were not mold resistant or didn't meet what was required. Basically, there was still mold that was going. Now we're talking about a project on the water or near the water. And I heard you talk about the elevation. The first floor will be at least 17 feet. That's great. I assume all the mechanicals will be on the roof or somewhere.
All right, they're elevated. I think the mechanical floor is, so there's no basement, council member. So
Right.
the mechanical floor is, I think, part of the first floor, which is 17 feet above grade. So it's elevated and there's no basement space per se.
Okay. And so in terms of the construction, are you going to be using those materials that are, now I'm nowhere near an expert, but it says that non-paper sheetrock that contains fiberglass, which prevents mold. So my question is in that regard, what
Right,
provisions are being made? We know the construction, the elevation, all of that, but what provisions are being made so that the materials that are being used in this development, which is on the water or near the water, I'm not quite sure, won't have those kinds of problems?
All right, so it's an excellent question. So first I have to say although my father's a contractor, I don't consider myself a construction person, and we have a full construction team, and we can get the committee a very specific answer to your question, but let me do the best I can. So there are really three things that you do, generally speaking, to keep a building dry and to avoid mold. I think one is physical barriers, deployable barriers to keep water out. And so in this case, in one of the slides, there are images of deployable barriers, which actually would be things that when a flood or a water event, a weather event is anticipated, that you deploy at that time, which seals particular entrances. The second thing you do is just to make sure that the building envelope and particularly entryways and facades are watertight. And a lot of the verbiage you saw in the slides relate to that. And it's a combination of making sure you're using materials that are water resistant, but that you're also creating a building envelope that doesn't allow water infiltration. And I think the third thing, to your point, is at those places where there may be water, to use materials that are resistant, mold resistant, water resistant. You see that often in regular buildings, particularly in so-called wet walls, like in bathrooms and kitchens. You normally see that sort of thing. So I think that's a general answer. We can get you a more specific. We can submit to the committee a more specific conversation about details for the record. But I wanted to assure the committee and the council member that this is something that we're experienced with, and that we're going to make sure that not only that we follow the guidelines, but best practices. I think it's really important in our industry, particularly after what we all experienced with Superstorm Sandy, and generally the more frequent weather events that we see as a result of climate change, that we do the things the right way. And so I'm going to submit for the record.
Thank you.
Answer in writing to that, which will do a much better job than I did, but
Okay. Thank you.
that's my response at this point.
And my last question, this is really a massive building, and the turns and the curves and the shape, of course, mask some of that massiveness because it's not front and flat.
Right.
So you said you can walk from one end all the way to the other end on any given floor. There are no barriers in this building between parts of the building.
Right.
But you said there are two elevator banks. Is this entire building, how many apartments are in this building?
360.
And are all of these apartments, they're all on one heating system?
So we haven't designed the mechanical system yet, but for this, and we have a few choices, but typically, there's a variety of different kinds of mechanical systems you use, but typically, our company and many others have migrated to mechanical systems that where there are individual units in apartments, and there's greater flexibility with respect to replacing units, et cetera. And so we can get you, again, I can submit a specific response on mechanical systems to you as well.
Thank you. I'll be sure to pass them on to my successor.
So
Thank
good to
you so
see
much.
you.
Thank
It's so good to see you, and thank you for your service all these years.
Thank
Amazing
you.
work
Thank
in
you.
New
Thank
York
you
and
much.
in Brownsville.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Barron, and likewise, thank you so much for your services
Thank you.
throughout your years. Are there any more questions, Council? Any more members?
Council members, if you have any more questions for this panel, please use the raise hand button now. There are no more council member questions.
Thank you for your testimony, Kirk, Kevin, and Matt. There being no more council member questions, this panel is now excused.
Chair Riley, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Are there any members of the public who wish to testify on LU 931, the Stapleton Beacon Article 11 disposition?
There are no members of the public signed up to testify on this item.
Seeing no other members of the public who wish to testify on this item, the public hearing on LU 931 is now closed. Before we take a vote, I would like to invite the School Construction Authority back to see if they want to present the other schools that we will be voting on.
If we could please promote Andrea Bender and Gail Mandero to panelists. And could we please unmute the panelists and remind the panelists that they are still under oath? And Chair Riley, in order for them to testify on these items, you need to reopen the vote on the school items. I mean, reopen the items and reopen the hearings, I'm sorry.
We will now continue with 3 more hearing applications submitted by the School Construction Authority pursuant to Section 1732 of the New York School Construction Authority Act for proposed site selection for school facilities. We will now hear pre-considered application number 2020-5373 SCR, a proposed site selection for a new supported space for PSR 721, an existing school facility known as the Hungerford School, located at 129 Tompkins Avenue in the borough of Staten Island, Council District represented by Councilmember Rose. We will hear pre-considered application number 2021-5033 SCQ, a proposed site selection for a new 572-seat primary school facility located at the corner of Water Edge Drive and 24th Avenue in the borough of Queens in the Council District represented by Councilmember Vallone. We will hear pre-considered application number 2021-5032 SCQ, a site selection for a new 801-seat high school facility located at 165-18 Hillside Avenue in the borough of Queens in the Council District represented by Councilmember Miller. And lastly, we will hear from SCA in the item we will hear pre-considered in the application number 2022-5011 SCR, a proposed site selection for a new 572-seat primary school facility located at 24 Shelley Avenue in the borough of Staten Island in the council district represented by Councilmember Carr. Presented on behalf of the School Construction Authority, we have Andrea Bender and Gail Mandaro. Councilor, please administer the affirmation again if you have to. If not, Gail and Andrea, you may begin.
We do not need to re-administer the affirmation. However, I do want to let the applicants know that you will just need to call up your presentation and give directions when to advance slides.
Yeah. Are you sharing? I'm sorry. Are you guys sharing the slides, or am I sharing my screen?
We are sharing the presentation.
Okay, hold on, please.
So if you would like the presentation brought up, we will do that now.
Okay. Good morning, Chairperson Riley and council members. My name is Gail Mandaro, and I'm the Senior Director and Senior Attorney for Real Estate Services in the New York City School Construction Authority's Real Estate Department. Also with me today is my colleague, Andrea Bender, the SCA's Vice President and Chief of Staff of External Affairs. The New York City School Construction Authority has undertaken the site selection process for 2550 Waters Edge Drive. It's on block 5958 and lot 30 in the Bay Terrace section of Queens for the purpose of design and construction of a new 572-seat primary school. The proposed site is approximately 44,000 square feet, just over 1 acre. It's privately owned, unimproved vacant lot located on the corner of 24th Avenue and Waters Edge Drive. Under the proposed project, the SCA plans to acquire the privately owned property for development of a new 572-seat primary school for Community School District 25. The site is located within the Queens Community District 7 and Community School District 25 in the Bay Terrace neighborhood of Queens. The notice of filing of the site plan was published in the New York Post and City Record on May 28, 2021, at which time Community Education Council 25, Queens Community Board number 7, and the City Planning Commission were all notified of the proposed site plan. Community Education Council 25 held a public hearing on June 2nd, 2021, and Queens Community Board 7 held a public hearing on June 28th, 2021. All public comments received regarding this site were considered as part of the site selection process. The SCA affirms the site plan pursuant to section 1731.4 of New York Public Authorities Law. In accordance with section 1732 of the PAL, the SCA submitted the proposed site plan to the mayor and city council by letter dated December 3rd, 2021. We look forward to your subcommittee's favorable consideration of the proposed site plan and are prepared to answer any questions the committee may have. At this time, we'll show you some slides of the existing condition in case you have any questions derived from there. This is the aerial view of the proposed site as it exists today. This is the tax map on file with Department of Finance, and you'll see that this is a subdivided lot we're acquiring. This is today's current conditions of the lot. Across the street is where Councilmember Vallone referred to earlier in his opening statement, where the park is proposed to be in the future. There's an apartment building located behind, and the SCA will be acquiring the vacant lot here as shown. This is the corner where the school parcel will be located ultimately. This is just some vantage points from the site location to the former swim club and some residents down the block on 24th. That's the apartment building surrounding the site. And this is just some of the fun facts that I just shared with you in my testimony. And happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Andrea. Council members, do we have any questions? You could use your raise hand function if you have any questions. Councilmember Vallone.
Good morning, Gail and Andrea. I just wanted to make sure you have on the record the agreements and the stipulations that the community in our office had put in to this project. They also going to be submitted at this time?
They're not submitted to council, but yes, we have them on file with this project, and we are committed and have engaged with our colleagues and stakeholders throughout the community. We have committed to continued engagement with DOT through design and through school opening to ensure that all traffic safety measures are addressed by both agencies appropriately. And I believe Andrea's team has committed that we will engage with the community throughout appropriate milestones of the project so that they are well versed in where we're at with the project and how we're moving forward.
Oh, that's great news. And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let you know, you could tell from that the site it's at a corner. So most of and there's no way really in and out except for that corner. So most of the concerns and proper concerns are the ingress, egress to the school, drop-off area, traffic control with the apartment buildings and the residents across the street in coordination with DOT and the local precincts at 109 and 111. So there's going to have to be continuous oversight there with the community to make sure that's done properly and not just, creating a school. And I've had that reassurance from the SEA team that will be done, whether we can do a drop-off zone, turnaround, and not at the expense of any outdoor area for the children, especially in the post-COVID world we live in. We need some type of outdoor area. So those were the not so much final pieces, but the pieces that we were working on and the reassurances that we were given by the school construction authority that will be done and considered and continually part of the community process. And that's how we were able to vote in approval for the site. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Vallone. There being no other council member questions, this panel is now excused.
With your permission, Chair Riley, we would like to continue with the presentation for the 801 seat high school at 16518 Hillside Avenue, which you have as application 2021-5032 SCQ, I believe.
And
Yes.
Chair Riley, may I suggest that we move ahead by having the applicants present the remaining schools all at once before?
Yes, I was just going to say that, Gail, you could present all the schools and then we'll take questions after for all of them. So if you could just present whatever you have left over and then we'll ask the questions after.
Okay, super. Okay,
May I also add that you can advance the slides while you're speaking just by saying next.
Oh, okay, fine. That I wasn't sure how to do that. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Chair Riley and council members. My name is Gail Mandaro, and I'm the Senior Director and Senior Attorney for Real Estate Services in the New York City School Construction Authority's Real Estate Department. Also with me today is my colleague, Andrea Bender, the SCA's Vice President and Chief of Staff for External Affairs. The New York City School Construction Authority has undertaken the site selection process for 165-18 Hillside Avenue on block 9816, lots 39, 41, and 49 in the Jamaica Hills section of Queens. Next slide, please. The acquisition is for the design and construction of a new approximately 801 seat high school, which will include some D75 capacity. The proposed site is approximately 38,800 square feet, just shy of an acre. It's privately owned parcel containing a vacant office building, vacant former funeral home, funeral parlor, and paved parking lot, which is part of the special downtown Jamaica district. Next, please. And next slide. Under the proposed project, the SCA plans to acquire the privately owned parcels for development of a new 801 seat high school for Community School District 28. The site is located within Queens Community District 12 and Community School District 28 in the Jamaica Hills neighborhood of Queens. The notice of filing of the site plan was published in the New York Post and City Record on June 3rd, 2021, at which time Community Education Council 28, Citywide Council for High Schools, Queens, Community Board 12, and the City Planning Commission were notified of the proposed site plan. Queens Community Board 12 held a public hearing on June 16, 2021. All public comments received on this site were considered as part of the site selection process. Next slide, please. That's the current conditions being depicted there. The SCA affirms the site plan pursuant to section 1731.4 of the New York Public Authorities Law. In accordance with section 1732 of the New York Public Authorities Law, the SCA submitted the proposed site plan to the mayor and city council by letter dated December 6th, 2021. We look forward to your subcommittee's favorable consideration of the proposed site plan and are prepared to take any questions at the end of these presentations. Next slide, please. Next. This is just showing existing conditions and vantage points of the site. Next slide, please. Again, different vantage point of the surrounding community. Next slide, please. And this is just the facts, pretty much as I reiterated, adding certain accessibilities from public transportation, which is generally very favorable for high school programming. Next slide, please. And that's the end of that presentation. That's Water's Edge. We're now going to move on with council's permission to present you a site at 24 Shelley Avenue in Staten Island in newly elected council member Carr's district.
Yes.
My name is Gail Mandaro, and I'm the Senior Director and Senior Attorney at Real Estate Services in the New York City School Construction Authority's Real Estate Department. Also with me today is my colleague, Andrea Bender, the Vice President and Chief of Staff for External Affairs. The New York City School Construction Authority has undertaken the site selection process for the acquisition of privately owned property to develop a new approximately 572-seat primary school facility located at 24 Shelley Avenue on block 2629, lots 1 and 20 in the borough of Staten Island. Next slide, please. The site consists of approximately 162,000 square feet of lot area, approximately 3.72 acres. The property consists mostly of unimproved vacant land and a 2-story residential building, which is the unoccupied rectory, former rectory and garage on Shelley Avenue, lot 20. Under the proposed project, the SCA plans to acquire the privately owned parcel to construct a new approximately 572-seat primary school building. The site is located within the Staten Island Community District number 2 and Community School District number 31 in the Travis Chelsea neighborhood of Staten Island. Next slide, please. The notice of filing for the site plan was published in the New York Post and the City Record on December 23rd, 2019, at which time Community Education Council 31, Staten Island Community Board number 2, and the City Planning Commission were also notified of the site plan. The CEC and Community Board were asked to hold public hearings on the proposed site plan. Staten Island Community Board 2 held a public hearing on January 21st, 2020, and Community Education Council 31 held a public hearing on January 16th, 2020. Public comments were received and were included and were considered as part of the site selection process. The SCA affirms the site plan pursuant to section 1731 of New York Public Authorities Law. In accordance with section 1732 of the New York Public Authorities Law, the SCA submitted the proposed site plan to the mayor and the city council by letter dated December 3rd, 2021. We look forward to your subcommittee's favorable consideration of the proposed site plan and are prepared to answer any questions the committee may have. Can you do the next slide, please? And this is just the facts as I reiterate. It's a rather large site located on 2 privately owned lots that were part of the former St. Anthony de Padua Parish. Next slide, please. And these are some of the current conditions. Next slide, please. Next. Next slide, please. That's some of the adjoining properties. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation of our 4 sites for your consideration.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Andrea. Do we have any council members who have any questions? There being no more council member questions, this panel is now excused. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest.
Thank you very much for your time, and everyone have a wonderful holiday season.
How about you too?
Thank you so much.
Before we take a vote, I just wanted to allow council member and Chair Traeger, who's the chair of the Education Committee, if he wanted to give any remarks regarding any of the schools that we are voting on today. Councilmember Traeger.
Well, Chair, it is always a great day when we're talking about building schools. So I want to thank you for leadership and to my colleagues and to SCA. So thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Before we take our votes, I move to file application number 2022-5012 PXQ, submitted and subsequently withdrawn by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services for the proposed acquisition of 24,000 square feet of office space located at 162-10 Jamaica Avenue in Queens on behalf of the New York City Law Department. We will now vote to approve on all items we hear today. LU 931, 2020-5373 SCR, 2021-5033 SCQ, 2021-5032 SCQ, and 2022-5011 SCR. We will also vote to approve LU 922, the Bed-Stuy East and Weeksville Mosaic UDAP and Article 11 tax exemption that we heard at our meeting on November 17th. For this application, HPD seeks approval of an Urban Development Action Area project waiver of the designation requirements of Section 693 of the General Municipal Law and the requirements of Sections 197-C and 197-D of the Charter, and the real property tax exemption pursuant to Section 577 of Article 11 of the Private Housing Finance Law for 13 city-owned properties and 1 privately owned property in the Bedford-Stuyvesant and Weeksville neighborhood of Brooklyn. The proposed facility will facilitate the development of 46 affordable cooperative home ownership units under HPD's Open Door program. The properties are located in the Brooklyn district represented by Councilmember Cornegie and Councilmember Ampry-Samuel. And finally, we will vote to approve the motion to file application number 2022-5012 PXQ. Council, please call the roll.
Riley,
I don't know.
Koo,
I will aye.
Barron,
I vote aye on all.
Miller. Councilmember Miller. We'll come back to Councilmember. Councilmember Miller.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilmember Miller.
I'm sorry, I missed that last piece.
We're taking a vote on
On all the school items, SCA items.
correct, and also we're also taking a vote on LU 922, 931, and also the application to file application number 2022-5012 PXQ,
Which is mine. Okay. I am ready.
Councilmember Miller.
I vote aye on all.
Traeger.
Aye.
By a vote of 5 in the affirmative with 0 in the negative and 0 abstentions, the items are adopted and recommended to the full land use committee, except for application 2022-5012 PXQ. The motion to file is adopted and recommended to the full land use committee.
Thank you, Council. That concludes today's meeting. Before we end, I would just like to thank Councilmember Miller, Councilmember Barron, Councilmember Traeger, Councilmember Koo for your services. This being our last landmark meeting. You all have been pleasant. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Sergeants, for all your work. This has been a true blessing to chair this committee. Thank you for all.
Thank you.
And that concludes today's business.
It's been a pleasure working with you, just jumping in with all of my colleagues. This is, as has been said, our last hearing.
Here.
And it's been a great pleasure working with all of you. And I just want to say all the best to everybody, whether you're leaving, as I am, or staying to continue the work of doing what the people have sent you to do. God bless to everybody.
Thank you, Councilmember Barron, and also Councilmember Vallone. Thank you also for your services. That concludes today's business. I remind you that if you have any written testimony on today's items, you may submit it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, that's landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number or the project name in the subject heading. I would like to thank the applicants, members of the public, my colleagues, subcommittee council, land use staff, and Sergeant at Arms for participating in today's hearing. This meeting is hereby adjourned.